General Heinz Guderian arrived at Führer headquarters in November 1941, carrying figures that he had checked and rechecked before presenting them, understanding that the numbers themselves would generate resistance regardless of how carefully he framed their delivery. Second Panzer Group, which had crossed into Soviet territory in June with over 600 tanks distributed across its constituent divisions, could field, by his most recent count, fewer than 50 operational vehicles capable of sustained combat. The remainder existed in various states of mechanical failure, battle damage awaiting repair facilities that didn't exist in adequate numbers this far from Germany, or complete destruction that no repair could address. Mein Führer, I want to be precise about what these numbers represent. This is not attrition in the sense of losses we can expect to replace through normal reinforcement channels. This is the near-total consumption of an armored force that took years to build and that our current production cannot replace at anything approaching the rate required. Guderian, you have reported difficulties before. Your divisions have always found a way to continue fighting. They have continued fighting because the alternative was worse than continuing, mein Führer, not because the difficulties I reported were exaggerated. I am telling you plainly that Second Panzer Group, as an armored striking force capable of the kind of operations that have characterized this campaign since June, no longer exists in any meaningful sense. What remains are infantry formations that happen to retain the designation Panzer, supported by a handful of tanks that mechanical failure claims faster than field repair can restore them. Hitler's response combined the particular frustration that accompanied unwelcome operational reports with a demand that exceeded what the circumstances Guderian was describing could accommodate. Then, German industry must produce more tanks. I have told Speer this repeatedly. Production takes months, mein Führer, and the specific vehicles this campaign has consumed cannot be replaced within any time frame relevant to the operations currently underway before Moscow. I am not describing a problem industry can solve by spring. I am describing the condition of this army today, in December, facing a Soviet counteroffensive with the equipment we currently possess, and no meaningful prospect of reinforcement before the crisis resolves itself one way or another. This exchange, occurring as the winter crisis before Moscow reached its most severe phase, represented Hitler's first direct confrontation with a problem that would recur with escalating severity across the remainder of the war. German industrial capacity, however successfully rationalized and expanded, could not replace armored vehicles at rates matching the losses that sustained combat against the Soviet Union was inflicting. The specific mechanical dimension of this crisis, tank engines seizing in extreme cold, transmissions failing under conditions German equipment specifications had never anticipated, compounded battle losses in ways that made the December 1941 tank shortage considerably more severe than combat casualties alone would have produced. Albert Speer, who assumed responsibility for German war production in February 1942, following Fritz Tott's death, inherited a production system that he found, upon detailed examination, poorly organized for the sustained demands that the Eastern Front's continuing attrition was generating. His early conversations with Hitler about tank production numbers established a pattern of expectation and disappointment that would characterize their working relationship for the remainder of the war. Mein Führer, I have reviewed the production figures in detail, and I believe significant improvements are possible through rationalization of existing capacity, standardization of components across different tank models, and elimination of the production bottlenecks that have characterized this industry's organization since before the war began. How significant? Within a year, I believe we can substantially increase monthly output. Whether this increase proves sufficient to match the Eastern Front's consumption rate depends on factors beyond production alone, the duration and intensity of continued combat, the specific loss rates our forces experience in coming operations. Speer's rationalization efforts, pursued with genuine organizational skill through 1942 and into 1943, did produce measurable increases in German tank production, but the improvements arrived within a strategic context that consistently outpaced whatever gains Speer's reforms achieved. The Kursk offensive in July 1943 illustrated this dynamic with particular clarity, as General Hermann Hoth, commanding 4th Panzer Army in the Operation's Southern Pincer, presented Hitler with pre-battle assessments that acknowledged the operation's material requirements even as the forces assembled for it fell short of what those requirements specified. Mein Führer, the new Panther tanks arriving for this operation represent significant technical advances, but the numbers reaching frontline units remain below what the original planning specified, and mechanical reliability issues in these early production vehicles mean that a meaningful percentage will likely fail before or during the operation's opening phases, regardless of combat losses. The Panther will provide the qualitative advantage that compensates for whatever numerical shortfall exists. I hope this proves accurate, Mein Führer. I would be remiss not to note that qualitative advantages have not, in previous operations, fully compensated for numerical disadvantages against an opponent whose own tank production has continued expanding throughout this period. The Kursk offensive's failure and the catastrophic tank losses that both the initial attack and the extended fighting through July and into August inflicted on German panzer forces transformed the tank shortage from a periodic operational concern into what General Heinz Guderian restored to his position as Inspector General of Armored Troops following his earlier dismissal, characterized to Hitler in blunt terms during a conference that autumn as an existential threat to Germany's capacity to conduct the kind of mobile armored warfare that had defined its earlier military successes. Mein Führer, I must report what the aggregate figures from this summer's operations actually represent. We have lost, between Kursk and the subsequent Soviet counteroffensives, a substantial percentage of the entire panzer force committed to this year's Eastern Front operations. Production, however successfully Speer's reforms have increased it, cannot replace losses at this scale within any time frame that matters for operations currently being planned. You have said this before, Guderian, and somehow the panzer divisions have continued fighting. They have continued fighting with progressively fewer tanks per division than the organizational tables specify, Mein Führer, a distinction that matters considerably for what these formations can actually accomplish in offensive operations, whatever their nominal designation continues to suggest. I am recommending that panzer divisions be consolidated, that available tanks be concentrated in fewer, more fully equipped formations, rather than distributed thinly across divisions that exist, in practical terms, as panzer divisions in name only. Hitler's resistance to this consolidation recommendation, which would have required acknowledging publicly that Germany could no longer maintain the number of panzer divisions its organizational charts specified, reflected the same underlying psychology that had characterized his response to Guderian's earlier December 1941 report, an unwillingness to accept that material constraints, rather than insufficient determination or inadequate production effort, represented the fundamental limiting factor on what German armored forces could achieve. General Fritz Bayerlein, commanding Panzer Lehr division during the Normandy campaign in 1944, experienced this same tension in circumstances that added Allied air superiority to the list of factors consuming German tank strength faster than production could replace it. His reports following Operation Cobra's devastating bombardment in July 1944 documented losses that exceeded what any single engagement in the war's earlier years had typically produced. Entire tank battalions eliminated not through Soviet or American armor in direct combat, but through concentrated aerial bombardment. The German air defense, by this point in the war, possessed no meaningful capacity to prevent. Mein Führer, Panzer Lehr's tank strength following the American bombardment near Saint-Lô stands at a fraction of what the division possessed before the attack. This was not combat attrition in any conventional sense. This was the elimination of armored vehicles through concentrated air power before ground engagement even began. The specific character of this loss, tanks destroyed by aircraft rather than by opposing tanks or anti-tank guns, represented a category of attrition that German production planning had never adequately anticipated, adding aerial vulnerability to the mechanical failures, combat losses, and logistics constraints that had been depleting panzer strength since the Eastern Front's earliest winter crisis. By the autumn of 1944, with the Ardennes offensive being planned as what Hitler characterized as a decisive counterstroke capable of altering the war's western trajectory, General Hasso von Manteuffel, commanding 5th Panzer Army in the operations planning, confronted Hitler directly about whether the tank strength being allocated for the offensive actually matched what the operation's ambitious objectives required. Mein Führer, the armor being assembled for this operation, while representing a genuine concentration of what remains of our armored reserves, falls considerably short of what an operation aiming to reach Antwerp would require against opposition of the scale we can expect to encounter once American forces recognize what is occurring and respond accordingly. This offensive represents Germany's last opportunity to alter the war's trajectory in the West. The tanks allocated represent everything currently available. I understand this, mein Führer, and I will execute the operation with everything at my disposal. I am simply noting for the planning record that everything at my disposal falls short of what military calculation alone would specify as necessary for the objectives this operation has been assigned. The Ardennes offensive's failure and the catastrophic losses it inflicted on the last substantial concentration of German armor in the West completed a trajectory that had begun with Guderian's December 1941 report before Moscow, and that had continued through every major operation the war's subsequent years produced. German panzer divisions, whatever their nominal organizational strength, existing increasingly as formations whose actual tank numbers bore diminishing relationship to what their designation implied. Consumed by combat losses, that production, however successfully rationalized, could never fully replace against an opponent whose own tank production had, by the war's middle years, come to exceed German output by margins that no amount of qualitative advantage in individual vehicle design could adequately compensate for. General Heinrich Eberbach, commanding what remained of German armored forces in the West during the final months before his own capture in the Falaise pocket, articulated in a report to Hitler's headquarters during August 1944 what had become, by that point in the war, an increasingly common assessment among the officers actually commanding the panzer divisions that Hitler's strategic planning continued to treat as capable of the kind of decisive operations that had characterized the war's earlier years. Mein Führer, I command formations whose designations suggest armored striking power that the actual tank counts within those formations no longer support. We are attempting to conduct operations premised on panzer divisions as they existed in 1940 and 1941, using panzer divisions as they actually exist in 1944, a discrepancy that no tactical skill can fully overcome, regardless of how skillfully available forces are employed. When Hitler learned the panzer divisions were running out of tanks, the learning arrived across nearly 3 years, from Guderian's December 1941 report before Moscow, through Hoth's Kursk-era warnings about Panther reliability, through Bayerlein's account of aerial destruction at Saint-Lô, through von Manteuffel's direct acknowledgment that Ardennes lacked adequate armor for its assigned objectives, to Eberbach's final summer 1944 assessment that German panzer divisions existed increasingly in name only. Each report, delivered by officers whose professional competence and battlefield experience made their assessments difficult to dismiss entirely, documented the same underlying reality that Hitler's strategic framework proved consistently unable to fully incorporate, that the armored force which had made blitzkrieg possible in the war's opening campaigns was being consumed, year by year and battle by battle, at rates that German industrial capacity, however heroically rationalized under Speer's management, could never adequately match against the combined material weight of opponents whose own tank production had, by the war's final years, come to dwarf what German factories, however desperately expanded, remained capable of producing. The specific comparative figures that Speer eventually compiled, in reports whose full implications Hitler's headquarters absorbed only partially, even as the numbers themselves became increasingly difficult to dispute, documented a production gap that no rationalization effort could close. Soviet tank factories, many of them the relocated facilities that had survived the desperate evacuation eastward during 1941, were producing T-34 tanks in numbers that exceeded German output across nearly every month of the war's middle and later years, a simplified design philosophy prioritizing production volume over individual vehicle sophistication that stood in direct contrast to the German engineering tradition's emphasis on technical refinement. A tradition that produced genuinely superior individual vehicles in the Panther and Tiger while sacrificing the production speed that quantity ultimately required. American tank production, once fully mobilized following Pearl Harbor, added a third source of overwhelming material advantage that German planning had never adequately incorporated into its pre-war assumptions about the relative industrial capacities that any prolonged war would ultimately test. The Sherman tanks that began appearing in North Africa and later across every Western theater represented individually vehicles that German tank crews frequently outmatched in direct engagement, but the sheer numbers in which Sherman tanks arrived meant that German qualitative advantages, however real in any single engagement, proved increasingly insufficient against opponents who could simply replace destroyed vehicles faster than German forces could destroy them. General Guderian's final wartime assessments, delivered during the conferences of early 1945 as the last organized German panzer reserves were consumed in the fighting along the Vistula and then the Oder, returned to the same fundamental warning he had first delivered before Moscow more than 3 years earlier, now stated with the particular clarity that came from having watched the warning prove accurate across every intervening campaign, without ever once producing the strategic adjustment its accuracy should have warranted. Mein Führer, we no longer possess the armored reserves that any coherent defensive strategy on this front would require. What remains are fragments, individual battalions and companies distributed across a front that our pre-war doctrine would never have considered defensible with forces of this scale. I am not describing a temporary shortage awaiting production's eventual catch-up. I am describing the practical end of German armored warfare as this war's earlier years understood that term. Hitler's response to this final assessment, delivered in the war's closing months, carried none of the earlier confidence that industry could somehow resolve what battlefield attrition had created. What remained, in the conferences of early 1945, was a persistent demand for resistance from forces that both men understood, in ways neither fully articulated in those final exchanges, no longer possessed the material capacity to provide it. The panzer divisions that had carried German arms from the Rhine to the gates of Moscow in the war's opening 18 months existed, by the time Guderian delivered this final warning, primarily as designations on organizational charts, names attached to formations whose actual tank strength bore almost no relationship to the armored striking power those names had once represented, a transformation whose origins traced back, with remarkable consistency, to that first December conference before Moscow, when Guderian had told Hitler plainly that Second Panzer Group no longer existed as the force its designation implied, and Hitler had responded by demanding that industry solve a problem, that industry, across the following 3 years, and against opponents whose own production capacity proved to exceed anything German planning had anticipated, never once managed to solve.